Welcome back. Last time on the adventures of Beefstick the Barbarian, we made it to Defiance Bay. Finally. And found a marketplace. And sold some stuff and got enough money to start construction on the Bright Hollow Inn of my stronghold. So now I'm exploring this here town. Staber Stiletto Club, Pistol, and Blunderbuss. I'd probably do well to get him a saber then.
Point the way.
Let's talk to Narmer. The merchant smiles brightly. Well met, traveler. Are you interested in purchasing any rations for your journey? Quite possibly. Ooh, a dragon egg. Plus 3 resolve for 300 seconds. While full-grown dragons can grow to titanic proportions, their eggs start out just larger than a human torso. They make for very filling meals, if one is willing to brave the risk of raiding a nest. Dragon meat. By themselves, it's pretty good, but I make it into some recipes. That's where it's at. Dragon meat is considered a rare and exotic treat for the fairly obvious reason that it is not very easy to obtain. Many tales and rites of passage have formed up around the idea of consuming the raw flesh of these beasts. Definitely want to get some meat. Take everything you got. And some poultry. That'll do it for now. These potions are generally called upon to void the body of poisons and similar afflictions, though variants have been developed which do their work in a less messy fashion. These concoctions reduce the time needed for an affected individual to recover. I'm going to sell that. I mean, you can cast that anyway. Let's trade.
Got it.
I see there. Okay. You see a dimly lit room with extravagant decoration. Pillows of silk brocade cover the floor surrounding a large velvet-covered divan. Yeah. A man sits on the divan, his shirt untucked and only halfway buttoned. Behind him stands this elf, dressed in the same lavish finery as decorates the room. Her hips gyrate gently, dancing slowly around the man as she begins to sing. He looks up at her blearily, intoxication clouding his vision. He smiles, tunelessly, humming along with her. Her words are too low to hear clearly, but as her singing grows more intense, the lights in the room seem to dim even further and everything loses focus. She takes his face in her hands, singing directly to him, running her hands down his shoulders and arms until she's holding his hands. The man's eyes grow heavy and he quickly succumbs to sleep, slumping backward. She holds his arms, catching him as he falls, and gently lays him down across the divan. She stops singing when his head hits the pillow, and suddenly the lights brighten back up and everything snaps back into focus. She slips her hand into his jacket, retrieving an item that she places in a small box sitting on the nearby table. She looks back at the man, shakes her head, and escapes into the night. So that's like 2 people now in a very short period of time that seduced another to rob him. We're getting into a pattern here. Lenkel Great Storm. You see a man stumble, knees bleeding, clothes torn, eyes dead. His skin is damp with sweat, but he pushes onward. His back is arched, defeated. At his side hangs a bow, strings limp from disuse. He trips through the undergrowth sightless, ignoring all but the sound of his own anguish. He comes across a deer, guts spilled across the forest floor, still steaming into the cold night air. A stelgaer watches him from above, perched on the trunk of an enormous fallen tree. It takes the man a moment to notice his danger, and he seems almost glad for it. The stelgaer unravels itself from the tree, eyeing him carefully. Its distended stomach almost brushes the ground as it jumps down, and the man dives to meet it. For a moment, time seems to slow as the man and beast collide. The stelgaer roars, swiping at him with its claws, and soon has him pinned, great yellow teeth and acrid breath ready to end his intrusion. But with a wet, ripping sound instead, the agonized stelgaer is himself gutted from neck to rump. The man exhales deeply, covered in blood, ponderous. Not today. Not today. This would seem to be a weapons shop. Igrun stands behind the stall, polishing broadsword. The patterned flesh around his eyes is crinkled with age, and the muscles in his arms are knotty and lean, but he holds the weapons with ease. He nods at you. Come to take a look? You won't find a finer collection of armor and weaponry in Defiance Bay. Outside Sonlud's, of course. He flashes a crooked grin. What's so special about Sonold? She operates in the expedition hall. He jerks a thumb over his shoulder. Sells the best equipment in the city. But Wenan keeps her on a short leash. Keeps her fine inventory reserved for chartered expeditionists, members of the dozens, and anyone else he takes a liking to. Now, let's see what you got. Borsane. Wow, that is an expensive bow. The dwarven clan of Langmar dwelt in the wilds of Nassatak, hunting game and surviving off the harsh land. Summers were brief and winters difficult, but the winter of 2562 AI was one of the hardest in the tribe's long history. A mighty snow leopard had established territory nearby, scaring off much of the game near the village. By Funauton, the hunters were returning with little more than rabbits, and the winter freeze was nigh. A dozen of the best hunters stuck out across the tundra, determined to hunt the great cat. The beast was craftier than they planned, and by Iniverno, half of the hunters and most of the hunting foxes had been slain without so much as wounding the leopard. Desperate and furious, one of the hunters crafted a bow from the bones of her slain fox. As her remaining companions looked on, it seemed that all of her rage was channeled into the weapon while she carved and shaped it. Her work completed, she set off and tracked the beast to its lair. Once she'd killed it, she decorated her bow with its teeth as a reminder of the deed and of the long and tragic hunt. Now black with age and use, this bow is nevertheless fierce to behold. It's studded with teeth of a large cat, and notches curve its tight spirals. The lady's hand. This slender steel scepter is topped with a gilded feminine head, each finger ending in a delicate mother-of-pearl nail. It was forged and crafted by the smiths and artisans of Delwood, a small town in the foothills of Magmere Mountains in the southern reaches of the Eder Empire. The recipient was Lady Riga Adelwen, 3rd Margrepha of Maghanon, who had recently emerged victorious from a brutal campaign against her march barbarians and agents of a rival family. In leading the defense of the march, Lady Riga had lost her left hand. The Emperor had the scepter created to reward her sacrifice during the protection of what was the Empire's southernmost territory. Unfortunately for the Adelwyn family, they only held the Maghanon territories for 2 more generations. With little money and no land, the family set out for the young colonies of Durwood. The Lady's Hand saw renewed use in battle by Brannon Adelwyn, Thane of the Low Meadows during the War of Black Trees. There, Brannon used it to defeat Glanthathan warriors and spirit-animated trees that were marching out of the deep wood. For his service to the colonies, Brannon was made an earl of the new territory of Blackstand. But bad luck struck the Adelwyn family twice. Only a year after establishing a fort on the frontier, Brannon was ambushed by Glanthathan resistance fighters. Finishing their main mission, the assassins then pursued his small family and killed every member, leaving no heirs to the House of Adelwyn. Following the reinforcement of Blackstand's fort by its new earl, the Adelwyn family's belongings were distributed according to the known wishes of Brannon. Notably, the Lady's Hand, his great-grandmother's gift from the Emperor, was bequeathed to Sir Hareg Cardaf, a minor knight of New Haomar, alongside whom Brannon had fought in the War of Black Trees. More comfortable with sword and shield than scepter and grimoire, Sir Hareg displayed his friend's gift prominently in his home, but it never saw use in battle again. Lost Thane's Reach. A pike. Lost Thane's Reach was once wielded by Thane Solmar Canehode of the Grasp. While engaged in a skirmish against some Glanthathan rebels at the outskirts of New Haomar, Solmar cornered their leader at the edge of a cliff. The rebels quickly interposed themselves between Thane Solmar and their leader, seeking to prevent Solmar from striking the final blow. A skilled pikeman, Solmar was able to foul every effort to strike him, and he ultimately dealt the rebel leader a mortal wound. Unfortunately, the pike's hooked blade became snagged upon the dying elf's armor, pulling Solmar over the edge of the cliff with his foe. Shatterstar. All around Ayora, tales circulated about fabulous weapons fashioned from stones that fall from the heavens. Once believed to be gifts from the gods, and still often seen as such, these stones are now known to be meteorites. Even so, items crafted from them remain precious. Shatterstar was forged from a solid block of palisite that was discovered by one of Aothas' faithful shortly after the Saint Waidwen rose to power in Reedsaris. It was crafted into a weapon and carried at the head of the Reedsaran army during Waidwen's march on Durwood. As such, it was believed lost at the Godhammer Citadel. The head of the hammer is iron and nickel laced with yellow and orange crystals. It's held in place by bronze bands joined in softly jingling rings. Pike's Pride. Born into a family of fishmongers, one young Aduran decided that he would give up the family trade and take up the sword instead. He swore that he would find greater fortune than ever was bestowed upon his family. When he sought out opportunities to prove himself, however, he was so often scorned, for he came from low-born stock, and his line had achieved little of note. Discouraged, the lad returned home, only to find that his family, eager to see him achieve his wishes, had pooled what coin they had to commission a suit of armor that might keep him safe. The lad asked the smith to craft a set of gleaming scale armor, bright as the flashing scales of a fish, and just as light and quick. He called it Pike's Pride, and while he wore it, he found himself immune to whatever foul words his detractors might level at him. Plus 10 will. Half stun duration, half knockdown duration. That's damn good. Plate armor. If only it wasn't so expensive. Has the same penalty as Brigandine, but is much hardier. Of course, it costs 5 times as much, so. The Dunrid Demon. Plus 2 intellect. Gaswin was one of the Brisho-Gwyn of Air Glanfaft, who received training from their wooden animances around 2785 AI. When Dunrid Woe was founded 15 years later, she's one of the first ciphers to join. Though relatively old for an Orlan, she was one of its most enthusiastic and capable agents. Known as the Dunrid Demon, she was ruthlessly methodical and infamous throughout Defiance Bay for prowling the streets in her helmet, searching for clues and connections. At the end of Saints' War, she was over 40, and she was sent to the Godhammer Citadel to search for traces of Saint Wedwin. She never arrived, and years later her helmet was found on the road from Echo Bay. So he gets a plus 6 accuracy with sabers. This sword gives plus 4 accuracy, but it also does extra damage. Alright, we'll give her that. Well, I think I'm going to get rid of this sword. I need the money. I'll be regretting that next time I fight spirits, but really what I'm going to be looking for him is a better saber. Alright, now I have money for more upgrades once the
Ready, Watcher.
Bright Hollow is finished.
Got it.
What's up here? Some rice. Some mercenaries. This is the Expedition Hall. Alright, well, I will go in there, but first let's go to the inn. Some more souls to reach out into. Irishti Tungsten. You see a fire burning slowly on the side of a winding road, unmanned. There seems to be no fuel, no wood or oil for it to consume. No hay or twigs. Despite this, it roars, crackles, and wails in the wind. It takes you a moment, but you begin to notice a figure in the flames. Its shaking hands cradle a young face, molten red tears marring skin the color of the coal. The boy cowers, flame coating him as he holds his knees to his chest. In the distance, a man approaches, faceless. He extends a hand to the frightened child, who considers it warily before taking it. The flames die down, leaving his limbs and settling on his head like obedient pets. All tears dried, they walk together, fire and death, hand in hand. Micarus Solomatine. You see a wizard playing illusions in a town square, fingers plucking color and sound from the air and weaving scenes of beauty and fright. A crowd of onlookers gasps and cheers, enthralled with the display, all but one boy standing off to the side, mouth agape. Green eyes are pale with wonder, vision after vision playing out before him, and something inside the boy clicks. Without warning, he bolts, disappearing into the crowd, pushing and shoving desperately. The mage finishes his show soon after, a giant silver dragon descending through the crowd, and 1,000 stars exploding into nothingness. Collecting coins, he walks around the clapping crowd, bowing and nodding at each as he passes until a small sack is dropped into his hands. The boy stands for a moment before him, small and still, and begs the wizard to apprentice him. He glances at the hefty bag, weighing it, and the boy, carefully. Finally he nods and flicks gently at the bag, which disappears. The boy grins. "How'd you do that?" he asks, but the illusionist merely winks. The Vulture. You see a hand, curled and bruised, staked to the floor with a bent metal spike. Blood covers the floor and drips from the furnishings and walls. This man looks up from the body he is crouched over to survey the carnage he caused to the family in whose house he now skulks. 4 bodies total, a woman, 2 young men, and a girl, lie blindfolded on the ground. Their legs are bound, and both hands are attached to the floor with spikes. He has lifted the woman's blindfold and is currently doing something to her eyes. He pulls back a small blade and covers the eyes again, gently patting the blindfold. He stands and looks around, seemingly satisfied with his handiwork. Suddenly his breath quickens, hearing someone approach the door to the room. He bounces in place, excitement almost overwhelming him, then rushes to the back of the room, concealing himself in the shadows. From his vantage, he sees the bodies are perfectly arranged, each one facing the door, welcoming the man of the house back, arms outstretched as if in embrace. The door opens as he slowly pulls another spike from his belt, the tip of his tongue playing across his teeth in anticipation. Well, that was pretty disturbing. Ooh, an actress.
Sure.
Can we talk to the actress? You find all sorts. Everyone's a philosopher here. Whoa, cool. The stale gear's pelt is thick with dust and moths. The plaque below the beast reads, Maiden Falls, 2682. So Stalger's like a lion type thingy, like a dire lion or something.
Gods keep you.
The man behind the bar is nearly the size of an Almoa. A handle protrudes from his back, and his face is set with a stoic frown. He gives you a small nod. Here for a drink? There's a tiny pewter cup in front of you. He turns it in one broad hand, but doesn't drink from it. Tell me about yourself. Name's Bishop. Used to be a scholar of Barath. Now I run the Goose and Fox and keep the regulars in line. He shifts, and you see a warhammer strapped to his back. What more is there to tell? How'd you go from religion to taverns? The journey isn't as long as you'd think. It started with Hollowborn, and with this. He takes a black bottle from under the bar and fills the pewter cup. It was my sister's son. He takes a drink. At the beginning of Wedwin's legacy, he was one of the first. I never expected there would be so many after him. Tragedy's part of the cycle, but it's followed by rebirth. Yet every year more parents were grieving for their hollow-born children, and the gods were silent. So you lost your faith? He leans forward, crossing his arms on the bar. Baroff promises rebirth, cycles, but the only cycle I found was this one. He taps the bar. Have a drink, have another, and another, until I couldn't remember how I got home. Wake up, come back. I finally woke up one day to see my family had packed up and left. For all I know, they'd left days before and I just hadn't noticed. But they were gone, so I came here. I've cleaned up since then. Not that I've found my answers. He tosses the cup back. I've just stopped asking questions. This is a lively place. It was founded in the early days of their wooden independence by a traveling scholar named Errol of Levi. He wanted a place where kith of all backgrounds could gather and hash out the issues facing their new country. He rests his elbow on the polished wood of the bar. It didn't take long for the place to fill up. Brackenbury aristocrats argued with dockworkers from the gift while soldiers wrangled with politicians. Their woodens have never been known to turn down an argument. Takes a sip from the tiny cup. What happened next? Soon kith were coming from their farms and settlements too. He waves at the door as if expecting a crowd to bustle in. This place got even more popular with the valiant sailors than the salty mast, and that was the problem. He drains his cup. No matter what people say about fair-mindedness and civil debate, there's only so much people will tolerate. Errol found himself on the wrong side of an argument with the wrong Thane, and when he disappeared a few days later, some said it was the work of that Thane. He shrugs, spreading his hand over the bar as he surveys the room, but Errol knew which way the wind was blowing. If you ask me, he skipped town, hid out somewhere hoping for rational minds to prevail in Defiance Bay. He cracks a wry grin. If only he could see it now. I'll order some refreshments. Alright, he's got stuff to sell. A yellow lab? This small yellow dog seems singularly happy to accompany you, panting merrily as it lopes behind. I already have a dog and a giant miniature space piglet. I mean, I wouldn't mind more pets, but I'm not gonna buy one just now. So, let's see. How much do rooms cost? $25 for the cheapo room. We'll take that. Alright, let's see who else is in here. Lupitas Silvarum. You see an impressive gathering of wild Orlans in ceremonial dress, shaded by a corpse of ancient oaks. Underneath the largest oak stand two young Orlans, hands clasped, eyes clear as they promise to care for and love one another in the joining of their clans. An older Orlan steps toward them to speak, beard seeming to sprout from directly underneath his eyes, and declares their union complete. The jubilant Orlan clans carry the newly wedded couple away to their tent, with snorts of laughter and crude jokes, leaving the older Orlan to sit alone beneath the age-old oak. He sighs, observing the scene in the distance. He whispers a quiet benediction, glad for their gladness, and melts into the trees without another word. He has seen enough happiness for one day. Are you here for some words of wisdom too? Kainra. A woman sits by herself, spinning something on the table in front of her and watching it with furious intensity. It's about the size of a coin, and it wobbles over a crack in the wood with a metallic rattle. She snatches it up with one hand and slams a half-empty cup down on the table with the other. This is not a good time. You look like you could use another drink. I'll get there. She takes a long drink from her glass, just trying to calm down and trying to talk myself out of something foolish. Something foolish? She says nothing for a few moments, as if hoping you'll leave. At last, Kainra looks up at you, and lamplight falls across her face. A purpling bruise is blossoming across her cheekbone. There's something I need to give my fiancé, Pernisk. Only he doesn't seem to go anywhere without his new friends, and they're not exactly pleasant company. Who hit you? She shakes her head. I know how this looks, but you don't understand. It's not like Pernisk. It's these new friends of his. They've brought out the worst in him. I don't know. Boy, this is sounding like a bad relationship she's in. Tell me about these new friends. They've come into our house with their dead eyes and their black teeth. I'm not a fool. I know what it means. Pernisk makes me leave when they show up, but it's obvious what they come to do. Last time they came, I told them to get out. Let them have their fun somewhere in the gift, but not under my roof. She scowls and then winces, her fingertips gently probing her bruise. Svev changes you, I guess. The Pernisk I knew wouldn't have squashed the spider. I never thought he'd... She trails off, still feeling the swollen, discolored flesh. So he's a drug addict. But Svev makes people calm and listless. It shouldn't make them violent. Kainra shrugs. I don't really know. Seemed better than believing he's always been this way. Maybe I could go talk to him. Her hand rests on the table and she clenches it into a white-knuckled fist. There's nothing more to say to him. We're finished. I just want to give this back to him and have a clean break. She opens her hand and a ring clatters onto the table. It was his grandmother's. Even after this, I don't have the heart to sell it off. But if I go back there myself, I know what'll happen. I lose my temper and I probably wind up with another one of these. She points to her bruise. I'll take this ring to Pernisk then. She looks at you and nods. The house is just north of here. Just please don't hurt him. As furious as I am, I don't want that on my conscience. Got the kitchen. Sure looks like a kitchen. And something locked.
Let's see what lies this way.
What kind of goodies can I get? Ooh, a ring. Bartender's ring. Alright. Preservation. Plus 20 defense when stunned. Plus 20 defense when prone. Very good. The simple wooden ring is orange and gray, and it glows when you're not wearing it. The ring's actual history is more speculation than fact. While all sources agree that it was owned by Errol of Levi and that he acquired it after a period of exile, stories differ on the particulars of how he got it. Some say it was a gift from one of the gods, and others say it was a boon of a pact he made with a wicked power. So who could use this defense? Alaf could. I think I'm going to give it to Sagani. Go.
Ready, Watcher. Sure.
Let's take a look at this. A dragon is outlined in charcoal pencil. The thick, jagged lines and the faint smell of sulfur suggest that the artist completed this sketch in a hurry. Cliff Dragon, White Marsh, 2685. Brad Furris. You see a mud-soaked clearing, rain falling to the ground in large drops. This man is lying on his back in the muck, his hands holding open the maw of an enormous stalgar that stands over him, its front paws on his chest. The heavy rain falls over them, playing counterpoint to the grunts made by the opponents. That stalgar littered the ground around them, and the man's body shows signs of a difficult battle. His clothing is torn, hanging in scraps in some places. Bites and scratches cover his arms and legs. A huge gash cuts across his forehead, blood and water mixing as they run down his face and drip into the mud. It takes all the man's effort to keep the beast's jaws from clamping down. The man looks around wildly until his gaze finally lands on a large axe lying barely within arm's reach behind his head, the rain slowly covering it with grime and muddy water. He looks at the stalgar and then back at his axe, grim determination on his face. His arms are shaking. It seems he will not be able to hold the beast back for much longer. He takes a deep breath and wraps his right hand around the stalgar's bottom jaw, then lets go with his left hand, freeing the top of its head. The stalgar's mouth snaps shut on his right hand as his left shoots out above his head and grabs the handle of his axe. The stalgar grinds its teeth and pulls back, trying to free itself from his grip, blood dripping from its mouth onto his face. With a grunt that quickly becomes a bellow of pain, the man pulls his right hand down, bringing the beast's head closer to him, swinging the axe around as he does. The blade of the weapon pierces the stalgar's neck and it yelps, its mouth popping open as it tries to step backward off the man. Before his mangled hand can lose its grip, the man pulls and twists as hard as he can, trying to get the beast on the ground, using the stalgar's resistance to pull himself into a sitting position. He brings the axe down on its neck again, and one final time as its head and his hands simultaneously come free. The head flies from his grasp as he thrusts his hand behind his back to brace himself as he falls. As his hand hits the ground and his full weight lands on it, a second bellow of pain erupts from his mouth. Breathing heavily, he brings his now mangled hand up to assess the damage. The little finger is gone, lost somewhere in the mud. The two fingers next to it are twisted, broken, and torn, barely attached to his hand by small bits of flesh. He sighs, grabbing both dangling fingers with his left hand. He grits his teeth and pulls. Merchant? You want to sell me something? Hate to say it, but the legacy's been good for business.
Got it.
dwarf and an Orlan debate philosophy on the other side of the curtain. Debate philosophy, huh? Is that what the kids call it these days? That shot deadened. Hurdy. Ilfa. Key. Two-tone Weaksel. Deaden is busy filing a spur off a small round bullet. A burly Almoa raises a hand in greeting. Ilfa nods at you, a pint in one hand and a mace slung over her shoulder. The Orlan woman nods at you, a cup of wine in her hand and a scepter across her lap. So these are, I guess, adventurers.
Good day to you.
An Orlan man relaxes with his feet propped on the table. Patches of dark brown skin peek out from under a full mane of blue-green hair. He and the Orlan woman with him exchange laughs and comments with the trio at a nearby table, and he spins a dagger in his hand. His hazel eyes watch you. You look like you've seen a night or two in the wilds. Joining us for a drink? Who are all of you? The name's Two-Tone Weaksel. The lady next to me is Key. We've had our fun with the expeditions, but we're hoping to enjoy a little peace and quiet. For the next few weeks, anyway. Man at the next table nods at you. I'm Deadshot Deeden. This is Hurdy and Ilfa. We were part of separate expedition teams, but we both suffered losses and decided to band together. He ticks several items off his fingers. Beasts, barbarians, bioax. It's a dangerous time to be an adventurer, but a prosperous one too. At the next table, Deeden raises his glass. And here's to many more prosperous journeys. Is there something else you wanted? No. Thank you. Thank you for the conversation. Ishana Glenn and Herod Raoul. You see a man standing in a dock. Sailors, soldiers, and prostitutes swarm around him, but he's watching the ship disappearing over the horizon. He should be glad his men didn't take his life along with the ship, but failure is almost as bad as death for a Valian, and the gods only know he hadn't fared any better in his family's mercantile business. It's almost a relief to see that last herald of his failure sail into the distance, sparing him the need to go back to his father and admit defeat once again. Besides, with sharp wits and an eye for opportunity, there's always a chance for comeback. He pulls a flask from his hip and takes a long drink. There will be a time for that later. He adjusts the flap of his eye patch and finds the tower of the brothel. He plots a new course for the evening, a grin on his face. You see a group of people standing on a clear path of earth, surrounded by several motionless bodies. On the ground in the middle of the group is a small figure, curled up to protect itself from the kicking feet of people standing around it. This woman is there, apart from the group, holding an enormous sword. She leans on it, using it almost like a crutch, hunched over and breathing heavily. She stares at the people and grunts, pulling herself upright and lifting the sword from the ground. She draws in a large breath, leans into a run, and quickly closes the distance between herself and the group. A blood-chilling howl suddenly explodes from her. The mob freezes mid-kick and stares at the terrifying bull of a woman now charging it. She jumps at the last second, bending slightly, turning herself into a projectile, flying into the middle of the people assaulting the figure on the ground. Everyone topples as she flies into them. She hits the ground beyond them, rolling, leaping back up and turns to face them. She plants both of her feet and lifts her sword, surveying the field. Suddenly she spins on her heels, swinging her sword with savage grace, cutting down the nearest of the assailants. Letting herself get pulled into the momentum of the spin, she brings her sword around, blade sideways, into the head of a would-be opponent. The bottom of the hilt shatters his temple, and he crumples to the ground at her feet. She looks up, rage-filled, eyes daring the remaining two men to approach. After a quick sideways glance at each other, they turn heel and run. One briefly looks back over his shoulder, ensuring she isn't following him. She slowly lets out a breath she had been holding and walks over to help the figure still huddled on the ground. Well, I'd like to get what's in that chest, but that would be stealing, and they're right there. This chest, however, not stealing.
What?
Some lockpicks and some fruit. Can't get that chest. No. But there's more.
Right.
The RPG tradition of looting everything in sight continues. Bor Acaria. Lexicanum McCreeg. And Dashi Oki. Is that a... Yeah, that's kind of colored. I think that would be stealing if I took from here. Which is a bummer. You see a man prying soundlessly on the ground, lips moving to some ancient and unknowable hymn. Lying in his hand, his sword sputters into blinding white light, banishing the darkness around him, instantly to lurk in corners and shelves. He opens his eyes slowly, continuing his silent prayer as he adjusts to the new light. His face tight with concentration. He stands and begins to move deliberately toward an enormous iron door, strange symbols inscribed upon its rusted surface. His prayer gets louder, gains substance as he gets closer. Blue eyes burn with fervor as the glowing tip of the sword touches the center of the door and slides through. White light spreads across its surface, symbols flaring into life as the paladin chants. A gentle tone sounds ringing through the ancient structure, and the door begins to open. The symbols have disappeared along with the rust, and the paladin steps through into places unknown, bearing a light he is only now beginning to understand. Okay, that's what I just did. You see a firm hand scribbling notes from an ancient, surprisingly sturdy-looking tome. Script precise, pictures small but clear. The monk runs his fingers across the paper, lightly, page after page, searching for something. The script is ancient, almost illegible, but he perseveres, scrawling stacks and sheaves of notes, transcribing the book into something more comprehensible. Suddenly he starts scribbling hastily, eyes wild, pen a blur across the newly ink-splattered page. With a start, he pushes out from the desk and closes the tome, sending waves of dust to coast about the room, and grins widely. He hurries to the exit, notes piled under his arm, and a new adventure on his mind. As you near, you feel a vibrant history contained in the essence of this man's soul. You see a grin slide across the face of a man and on to the face of a woman, younger still than he. She moves closer in the tallow light, sure and slow, tasting the anticipation of his tongue, the desire on hers. The candle gutters, sending yellow-brown light sneaking across his multifaceted eyes. She sits back, now all too aware of his luminescent horns and dust-stamped blue skin. His otherness leaves her breathless, but from fascination or horror you cannot tell. He reaches across a hand, trailing the line of her jaw, sibilant whispers snaking through the air, tempting, cajoling. Something in her breaks, and his grin slides back as he extends his tongue to lick the curve of her throat, pausing a hair's breadth from her flesh. The thing we spoke of, your husband. I shouldn't. He'd be ruined, a faint protest. The man wags his forefinger at her, tisking playfully, tracing a line with the finger down the length of her torso, causing her to writhe. He stops it just short. She gasps. No fair, that's cheating, she pouts, childlike. Not if we make the rules. The man winks and resumes his stroke. You doing all right?
How may I help?
What if I go all sneaky like?
Quickly and quietly.
Could I sneak past these guys? No, I couldn't.
Point the way. Got it.
Nobody in here, though. Is there anything for me to loot? Yes, there is. The most unfortunate tale of Favia and Bernat. A valiant tragedy. Scene. Laia watches Bernat approach Favia's tree, looking for her human form. Laia, behold, now comes the fun. That for which I have waited. His love is forfeit. Her life is forfeit. And all I have worked towards shall be fulfilled. He says he knows his love. He says no force in the world can keep him from her. But what chance has forced against guile? Never will he find his love, for she is no longer his love. The spell cannot be undone except by her death, and by then it'll be too late. But wait, he has seen her. Leia steps back to observe. Favia. Pray, mortal, why have you come here? These words are not for your kind. The affairs of men have no place at this tree. Leave. Leave ere your welcome lapses. Bernat. Foul creature! Where is my love? What have you done with her? Always this has been the station for our encounters. Never before have I seen you. Where is my love? Answer. Answer ere my patience lapses. Favia. Fool! This is my land and this is my tree. Your presence never before has been felt. Again I say to you, leave. My generosity will not be extended a third time. Laia steps forward again. Talk? Discussion? I know the way to hurry the conclusion of this tale. Laia takes a breath and extends her throat as if she's yelling. A scream comes from the corpse of trees where the puigra stands. Bernat. My love! Bernat steps forward, brandishing his sword. Prepare yourself, wretch, for not even death could stand between me and my love. I will have her from you, or you will meet your end. Bernat moves towards Favia, who closes to fight. They fight. During the fight, Bernat is grievously injured as he delivers the killing blow to Favia. She falls to the ground, and as she dies, the spell on her breaks, transforming her back to her Delamgrand form. Bernat, Bernat, my love, what have you done to me? What was it I said? What was it I did? Has our love soured in your heart? Favia, my love, my life, what foul sorcery has befallen you? How have you come to be laid low by my hand? Fie! Fie to the gods for such treachery! Fie to all who stood in their way! Favia, fear not, my beloved, for now we are together, and together we will always be. Nothing can keep us apart. But lo! Why is it suddenly so dark? Why has the sun gone? Where are you? I cannot see you. I will find you. I will. Favia dies. A curse upon the fiend who has betrayed me. To hold love in your hand and to have it wrenched away. Bernat winces and pulls his hand in and puts his hand in his shirt. It comes out covered in blood. What luck! What chance! Tragedy may yet turn to fortune. Favia, my love, soon I will rest in your arms. We will lie together again as one, and forever shall we be side by side. I go now to meet my love. Baraf, I accept your cold embrace. I welcome your company. I beg your mercy. Barat lies down next to Favia's body. I am ready. Bernat dies. Leia steps out from her hiding spot and runs to Bernat's body. Bernat, you fool, you wretch! How can you leave me? I am alone. I am forgotten. I am cast out. Without your love, how can I continue? Life holds no throw without your visage upon which I gaze. What shall I do? But here, my salvation, my answer. Laya picks up Bernat's sword. His blade, his weapon, I shall be impaled upon him, and he shall cut through me. I will not be denied my love. I will not be denied my love. You will be mine. If not in this life, then in the next. Laya impales herself on the sword. I come for you, my love, my Bernat. Wait for me. I will find you. We shall love forever. Laya dies. Okay then. I think that's it up here. And there's 2 more things I could rob, but not without getting caught out. I don't think I can get in this room without being seen.
Quickly and quietly.
If it makes you rest easier.
Doop, 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 doop. Yeah. Alright, let's just come out of shadows. That's not happening.
I'm here. Got it.
Scattered amongst such titles as Flora of the Living Lands, Unity and Discontinuity, A History of the Deadfire Archipelago, and Treatises on the Kolkin people are a half-dozen travel journals held together with twine. How close am I to leveling up? Pretty close. I may try that line fight again once I go up a level. It's probably doable at my current level, but so close to leveling up. I think that'll make a decent bit of difference. Admefs then. Alright. I'm going to save the game here. Where's this guy's house that I gotta track down, by the way? There's Pernisk's house. Alright. Next time, we'll go into this expedition hall. And if time permitting, we'll go to Pernisk's house too. If not, then that'll come at after that. And then, well, we'll go from there.